Alright people, I literally just got back from seeing X-Men First Class. I actually just did the bum review as well, and I'm sure you want to know what I think about, so here we go. Honestly, I have a mixed feeling towards this movie, but not for the reason you might think. In my opinion, by far, this is the best X-Men movie. I know it's like a big thing to say because a lot of people really like the X-Men movies, but in my opinion, this is the best one. It felt big. The action was big. The characters were big. It was this very larger-than-life story. When you got to the climax, I found a lot was invested. I thought, no, this is big shit going on. This is important stuff, not just, physically, when people are going to die and stuff, but emotionally, you're invested a lot. And in terms of movies nowadays, that's kind of rare in a climax to be that into what's going on. So this film does all that very, very well. Now, the reason I have mixed feelings about it is because I'm an X-Men fan. I read the comics, I watched the cartoon and stuff. And I wonder if other people have this feeling too. This X-Men movie, while it's probably the best, doesn't have any of my favorite X-Men in it. It has all the boring X-Men. It's about Xavier. It's about Banshee. It's about Magneto. It's about all the mutants that nobody would really pay money to probably go see. They're either really boring mutants or they're okay mutants. I mean, they're not the people that if someone saw they were in an issue, they'd be like, oh, I gotta see this one. And the reason that annoys me is because they did such a good job with these characters and getting you invested and really making this sort of like a badass X-Men movie. This is a badass X-Men movie that I've really been waiting for. But it has none of my favorite X-Men in it. There's, Wolverine's not a star, Rogue's not a star, Gambit's not a star. All the really cool, badass X-Men are not in it. With the exception of occasional cameos, which are very clever, by the way. They're very well done cameos. They're very brief, but they're very smart. So I guess what it made me realize, which I sort of knew, but it made me realize just how flawed the other X-Men movies are, which I never loved any of the X-Men movies. I always thought they were okay, It's cool for the nostalgia. Hey, that's Wolverine, that's Beast, great. But this movie really opens up to sort of what those movies should have been. They should have been a lot more potent. They should have been a lot more epic. I think Time Magazine said, about the first one, it was very wowless. And that's very much how I feel about those movies. So they're okay. They're okay movies. I don't hate any of them. Wolverine's pretty bad. But even then, I don't think that's the worst. Now, with that said, what makes it good? The actors playing these roles are great. It's great to see Magneto's background. Kevin Bacon is the villain in this, and he's a great villain. He reminds me a lot of Donovan from Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's just sort of playing all the sides so he can eventually come out on top. And I love those kind of villains. That's a great villain. And he puts on all these different hats and, I don't want to say disguises, but he's just always on somebody else's side, just for the convenience. And that's really great. He has this great power, which I don't know if he was a comic book villain. I didn't recognize him. Maybe he is, but it wasn't something big like Sinister or Apocalypse or something, which I thought was kind of a shame. Well, come on, let's see. Magneto's not the only one. Let's get another big one. Maybe he is in the comic. I don't know, but he certainly wasn't one of the big five, as far as I know, or at least they didn't call him by the traditional name. So that stuff is done well. The action is very well, especially the flying scene. The flying scenes are very, you actually sort of feel the flight in there. You feel like you're in air, so that stuff's always wonderful. The relationship between Xavier and Magneto is very well done. The actors that play him, like I said, are great. What else? It's very much like a spy/heist movie. Which is fun. Again, that's always sort of what I saw X-Men as, that they go into places, they sneak around, and then when they're discovered, they break out the claws and they beat shit up. That's an X-Men movie, where I thought the other ones were always just very prolonging, come on, get to the action. Even when you get to the action, it's sort of safety action. Like I said, they got a little better as it went on, but then the story sort of suffered. So I like it for all that stuff. And it seemed, like I said, there's scenes where they're going to get the mutants and they're finding the mutants and stuff. And I love those scenes where they're getting the team together and you're seeing what each character can do and what they're like. And that stuff's always wonderful. It is not perfect. There are some things that don't work. Actually, there's two major things, in my opinion, that don't work. One's very odd. One is the way everybody treats the Mystique character. And when I say that, everybody treats her differently, but none of them are appropriate. For example, it's sort of weird in the story, but they make it so that Xavier and Mystique are brother and sister, step-brother and step-sister. A little odd, but I'll buy it. If I can buy Rogue as, whatever, a 15-year-old, it's like, you can buy this. And the thing about it is that, like, there's... Her and Beast in this have sort of a love, maybe because they're both blue, I don't know, but they have sort of a relationship, and the way he talks to her is that, we shouldn't have to look this way, we should be allowed to look normal, and he's working on a serum so that they can still be mutants but look normal. And anytime she turns blue, he's like, oh, that's unnatural, that's not right. And then when she turns human, see, that's beautiful. Who would say that? What decent human being would say that? Or decent mutant? All the more reason, what decent mutant would say that? And Xavier, her own brother, does the same thing. When she's all blue, she says, Charles, would you date me? And he's like, what was the question? And I'm like, dude, this is supposed to be a nice guy, this charming, nice guy. Why would he be such an a-hole to his own sister, who, when they were kids, said, wow, you're magnificent, you're beautiful, and so, like, what changed? And they never really go into that. And then I think people know what's going to happen because she's with Magneto in the other movies, that she's going to eventually go with Magneto. And the change, how that happens is explained a little, but not much. And she explains to Charles, I'm going with him, and he's totally cool with it. What the hell? It's like, this guy is a psycho, he's gonna go crazy and blah, blah, blah. Why are you just like, yeah, that's what you want to do. Go ahead, it's fine. Yeah, my brotherly blessing. That came out of nowhere. That made no sense. And the only other major complaint is that this movie goes really far out of its way to keep the continuity to the other films. That this is definitely a prequel. This has come before the other movies. And for the most part, they do a good job, except for about 3 or 4 major friggin' things. If you watch the Bum Review, you'll see what I'm talking about. But there's 1 or 2 moments where you just say, wait a minute, that didn't happen. No, this doesn't add up to this doesn't connect, this doesn't. And I guess maybe you can forgive it, but it bothers me. I usually don't care about this stuff, but it bothers me because they try to go so far out of their way to keep the continuity together. And they even show clips from the first X-Men movie with the concentration camp. On top of that, they, Mystique looks exactly the same. And that really bothers me when you're going to go so far one way, but you're not going to get some really major plot points. It doesn't add up, and I think it is distracting. So that bothered me. Stuff like Mystique and Beast having a romance, and then in movie 3, it's like they never address it. I mean, when Beast sees they capture her, he was never like, me and her, we have a thing. I mean, it doesn't bear any relevance here, but, I know exactly how her mind works. I knew her when she was quite young, and, maybe I could help figure out what she's going to do, but, nah, she's just some chick. I mean, that's never addressed. The fact that, again, by the end, again, I don't think I'm giving anything away. You see Magneto with the helmet on and stuff like that. He's going to be the bad guy by the end of this. But what happens when Xavier and Magneto in film 3, in the beginning of film 3, when he's totally bald and he's Ian McKellen, go to Jean Grey's house and talk to her? It's like, what, they put aside their differences for a second just to go talk to this one girl, and then they leave. It's like, well, time to put the helmet back on. All right, I'll just go back in the wheelchair because I'm paralyzed again. I mean, when did this happen? I don't consider that nitpicky. I do see that as a big, big flaw. Like I said, simply because they went back and they tried to really connect all this together. And if you want to start over, that's fine. I want to see another rendition of Wolverine. I want to see another friggin' Gambit, one that has more than a 5-minute cameo. I want to see Rogue done right. I want to see all these mutants. Emma Frost, by the way, is in this, and she's very well done. They as soon as she walks on, again, you'll sort of like that same feeling when you saw Batman for the first time, or Wolverine. It's like, no, there she is. That's the character. That's awesome. Maybe a little young, but again, that's nitpicking. But that was a very well done character. I thought they really captured the essence of her. So, yeah, and aside from little nitpicking things, like sometimes the helmet looks a little goofy, or, like the yellow outfits are kind of silly looking and stuff like that, that's really nitpicking. I thought this was a very well done film. There are those two really big problems that just as a film, it doesn't tie together. But as the X-Men films go, this is the first time where you really felt like, okay, this is really flowing. And it's a long movie. It does not feel long. At least it didn't for me. It really flew by. And by the time we got to the end, I realized just how much we've been through. It's like, wow, I could watch more. I could actually watch more of this. If they make a sequel, I'd love to see it. I just wish they could use more of my favorite X-Men. But again, they're saying this is a direct prequel, so, what are you going to do? So, like I said, for me, it was kind of a mixed feeling, but honestly, it was very easily the best of the movies, which I didn't go in with much, with high hopes. I mean, it just looked like another spin-off with the boring mutants, and they made them very interesting. They made it very badass, and they made it like a spy film or a thriller film, with the supernatural edge. So I really, really liked it. I'm sure there's people out there that aren't going to like it. Either it differs from the comic, or again, they want to see the cool mutants. So, but with that said, and somebody was just telling me about a mutant named Darwin. And I told him what happens to him in this movie, and he was just like, that is bullshit! So, apparently not every mutant gets the good treatment in this. So some, like I said, purists are never going to like the X-Men movies, because they do make so many changes. I've accepted the changes. They just got to be consistent. So, alright, so I think I prattled on enough here. I really, really liked it, and I would definitely recommend it if you're an X-Men fan. And even if not, it's still pretty interesting, and they bring up some, fun little subtleties and stuff like that. So, definitely a fun movie, and that's my 2 cents. Later.